Another Wednesday has come and gone, and I got some comics. Let's talk about them. Hey, everybody, welcome to Nine Panel Grid here. We have an interesting week of comics here with some new number ones from the big two, some really great indie stories wrapping up here. But we're going to start off here with a brand new number one. Coming out from Marvel Comics, we have Ultimate X-Men number one, written and drawn by Peach Momoko. Now, this has been an interesting book because the Ultimate Universe has really set up the promise of a new expanding place where interesting stories could be told here. And we've seen a little bit from Ultimate Spider-Man, where it's really given the audience, something we've been striving for, but kind of keeping things really relatively in the norm. It's still dealing with Peter Parker, it's still dealing with the family dynamic. And it's similar with Ultimate Black Panther, where we're still dealing with T'Challa. He's still the king of Wakanda. Now, with Ultimate X Men, though, we're really exploring something completely new. And I'll be honest with you, I'm kind of excited by it. So, the primary character in the X Men book here is Hisako, generally known as Armor in the 616 universe. And it tells the story of grief and loss. And it really kind of delves deep into that, really upon the manifestation of the mutant ability here. And if you know Armor, it's, kind of right there within the title of her character. The storyline here is really interesting here. It's kind of going over a loss that she's recently experienced here. And I gotta say, Peach Momoko's artwork is just fantastic here. She brings the same painterly quality that you would expect from her in all the other books that she's done previously. But her storytelling and her pacing, I feel like, have really leveled up in this. And it's really it's breaking way to something that I think is going to be really interesting for her. It's probably a little cliche to say that I get Junji Ito vibes from this, but the horror aspects of this book, first of all, aren't expected from an uncanny or an Ultimate X-Men book, but they're kind of a welcome change to what I would have anticipated here. Another cool thing is that there are some aspects of this book that, generally speaking, I would not have been accustomed to or known. But the nice thing is that we get a little breakdown of all the different things that I was not going to be aware of otherwise. So kudos to you, Peach. I appreciate that. Overall, this was a really fun book here. I'm excited to see where this goes because of all the Ultimate books we've seen so far. This is the biggest question mark. Sticking within the realm of the mutants here, we're going to move on to X-Men, written by Jerry Duggan with artwork by Phil Noto. This has been a mixed bag, if I'm being completely honest. The Krakoan era is coming to an end. We all know that. Some love it, some hate it. This book kind of is the thesis of all that. It is really pulling in everything that I've loved and hated about that time period. Jerry Duggan, yeah, I'll be honest, he kind of struggles his way through this story. He is kind of what I've been calling the kick the can down the road type of writer. Nothing really happens here. Phil Noto's artwork is fantastic as always here, and I love the way that he can tell a story. But what is that story? What's truly happening here? It's kind of a whole lot of nothing here. We're getting more of these story beats in books like Rise of the Powers of Ten, Fall of the House of X here. And granted, I know that this kind of feels like more of a tie-in book, but it falls in under the pitfalls of some of the worst tie-in books that we're seeing here. So this one, it's a difficult book to recommend unless you're fully encapsulated into the Krakoa age and wanting to truly see every facet of how that ends. Since we're talking about team books, let's go ahead and jump right into Avengers, written by Jed MacKay with artwork by Ivan Fiorelli. This has been a difficult book to get through, unfortunately. I am a big fan of Jed MacKay. I really got turned on to him kind of post Moon Knight. A lot of people had talked about his Black Cat run, which I have to go back and read here. I was excited. I was ready for a revamp of the Avengers. Unfortunately, if I'm being honest, this is probably going to be my last Avengers book that I'm reading during this run, though. The artwork is fine. The pacing is okay, but it's not really what I'm looking for. And I can't really tell if it's the writing that is the hindrance of this or the artwork. Jed MacKay's trying to do things here that I just don't think are successfully being placed. It feels almost like this is a classic Marvel book from the 70s, But when I say that, I don't mean everything good about that. It's really, since issue one, been a story about good guy fights good guy wins, rinse and repeats. And the bad guys have a lot of capability of being really enticing and really cool creations, but I'm just struggling to latch on to them at all. I do think that the introduction of the Avengers new base is kind of a cool idea, where it was the prison for these villains here. But as I keep going through the story, I just keep struggling to find the mission statement. What is this? They kind of try to talk about it, especially with Carol saying, "We're not the police of the superheroes. This shouldn't be a prison. We're the first responders." But are they? Like, where have you shown me that rather than told me? So, with that being said, here, again, it was a struggle to get through. I'm really trying to figure out what this book is trying to tell us here. With the new Blood Hunts event that's coming up, maybe this ties more into that and we get something that we're looking for. But until that time, I do believe this is going to be the last one of these that I read here. Now, with all that being said here, the next book we're going to be talking about is Doctor Strange, again by Jed MacKay. So everything I said about the Avengers here is absolutely not the same in this book here. Pasquale Ferry is still on artwork here, and he's still doing a fantastic job. In fact, I would argue to say he's probably one of the top 5 artists at Marvel right now in regards to everything that you would expect in a story here. His line work is good, it's gritty, the pacing is there. He has extraordinarily interesting panel work here, just like this page right here, that really kind of shows you that he can take you through a story here, and the person crafting that story, Jed MacKay, also does a really great job here. I'm fully bought into Stephen Strange and Clea, their relationship, and the path that they're on right now. And I think what the strength of this book, more than anything, especially more than Avengers right now, is that each issue feels contained. You are satisfied at the end of every single issue that comes out here. This is not a kick the can down the road kind of story. You walk away with a sense of satisfaction. Not only that, but it gives you inklings of things here and there that you're gonna walk away feeling good about what you read. Now, the fun thing about this is that it's kind of an old trope, but Jed MacKay really brings in all of the characters that he's been crafting within the Marvel Universe recently, with Black Cat, with Taskmaster, with Moon Knight, and with Doctor Strange. The trope that he kind of brings in is the Dungeons and Dragons aspect of everything, right? You have the paladin, you have the mage, you have the thief. And we've seen that in other books, especially the most prevalent recently being Die by Kieran Gillen. This was just so fun, though. It was really nice seeing the culmination of that team and them going into the board game to follow the rules, trying to get the treasure, trying to win the mission, and so on and so forth here. It was a really satisfying story, a really good jumping on point here, and the reveal at the end of the villain here it's to be expected here, but it was a welcome expectation here. So Doctor Strange, absolutely recommend. Fun book. All right, let's jump over to the distinguished competition here with DC Comics Batman, written by Chip Zdarsky with artwork by Jorge Jimenez. So this book is coming right off of the heels of the Year One Joker storyline, which I'll be honest, I was a little bit surprised by the negativity that kind of fell upon that. I was really satisfied by that story, and I felt like it intertwined the Joker with not only Batman but also Bruce Wayne as well. I'm really excited to explore where that goes, and that's exactly what's happening in this issue here. So the Joker and Batman have both been imprisoned by Zur-Anar, who's fully taken over the failsafe body here. Um, he's told Bruce every little secret that he has and all of the little things that are going on in both of their minds here. But I think the really intriguing part here is actually the storyline with Zur-Anar and failsafe here. It's written so well where he can talk to the Bat family and really kind of play with their emotions and really kind of just like twist the gears to make everything work just the way that he wants to. Seeing the relationship that Bruce Wayne has unfortunately burned down over the over the run that Chip Zdarsky has had here, and seeing it be built up by the wrong person, it's oddly satisfying. We don't want to see this, but the Bat family is the backbone of the Batman book here, and seeing them question whether or not this is Bruce and whether or not this should be the way Bruce approaches life in general, it made for a really, really fascinating story here. I was really entertained by the entirety of this book here, and I'm excited to see where this goes here. Of course, Jorge Jimenez has got to stay on the artwork. I really like the way that Chip crafts his entire story arc to really build in those places where guest artists can come in and it makes sense without it being so jarring and whiplashy. But the book really just shines when those two are together here. So seeing them together in this book, it was a great, great combination, and I highly recommend it. All right, moving on to indies, let's talk about Kaya, written and drawn by Wes Craig. Now, this has been a fantastic book from start to finish here. I have loved seeing Wes really grow from his days on Deadly Class, which was honestly one of my absolute favorite books, probably to exist at this point. He's really exploring the hero's journey, the Joseph Campbell idea of the hero's journey here. And what's really fascinating throughout the entirety of this is that you will really believe that the Golden Arms character in this book is going to be our hero. And yes, she is very very heroic. But when we talk about the hero's journey, we're really looking about her younger brother Jin. And this is really a complex story because he sees his sister as the hero of the story. He absolutely looks towards her as being the person that he looks up to and is going to make sure that everything is okay. With his looking up to his sister here, that leads to him being very risky with certain things. Now, there's a prophecy that is led people to believe that he is going to be the savior of basically this world. And what he does with this is that he's taking chances here, and he's really putting his own life at risk, which furthers the story. He's taking himself out of the comfort zone, if you're looking at it in the Campbellian type of story arc. This is really coming into play here with the people that have decided to help him. He's trying to further himself and become the hero that he needs to be, but we're not quite sure if he's ready to be there yet. So time will tell on that. This is definitely one of the stepping stones within the story here, but it's wholly entertaining. It's a fantastic book. The artwork is just phenomenal. The color work here, again, just astounding. So Kaya is an absolute recommend for me. I love this book. We're getting really, really close to it being pick of the week here. But are you reading this? What are you thinking? Let me know. All right, moving over to Oni Press. Today we have a new number one here, Night People. Now, this is an adaptation here from a novel by Barry Gifford here. It's written by Chris Condon with artwork by Brian Level. The artwork is it's really good. It's gritty, it's textured. It really kind of pushes things forward here. And Chris Condon, while he's adapting the work, if you're reading that Texas Blood, if you're reading the Enfield Gang Massacre, you kind of know what you're getting with this. With the story not being crafted wholly by him, though, I think it's a bit of a letdown. So the story in this book is kind of a mix of a lot of different things. I get vibes of Thelma and Louise by way of Natural Born Killers with a religious twinge in there. It's interesting. It gave me enough to kind of get its hooks, half of its hooks in me, but it's not wholly there yet. I think some of the struggles is that there's not a character that you want to latch onto necessarily. There's no protagonist per se. You're following these two women as they kind of go on a killing spree. There's definitely semi supernatural aspects that are at play here. But it's hard to really grasp onto who am I supposed to be rooting for? Who am I supposed to be following in this storyline? Because if that's all it is, if it's just bad people doing bad things, I'm not sure if I'm along for the ride here. With that being said, it is an issue number one, and it's an adaptation, not necessarily written for the comic medium here. So I think this is going to be one of those books that take a little bit of time to really develop what it's supposed to be and really tell you, hey, this is where we're going. This is what you're going to be seeing here. With that being said, I'm gonna give this one a pass for right now. Granted, issue 2, when it does come out, I'll probably pick it up to see where it goes here, and we'll see if maybe they can further develop those themes in an entertaining way. All right, next up, we have Beyond Real from Vault Comics. Now, this is written by Zap Kaplan with art by Fabiana Mascolo and Tony Fezula. This has been an awesome book. I'm really glad that Vault is kind of getting back to what I really loved about them in the previous 3 years. I feel like they fell off maybe just a little bit with the books that were coming out, and they were leaning too heavily on the barbaric side here. But this has been the story of a person dealing with loss, and looking for solutions that lead her to a kind of a matrixy world, right? She's kind of in a world between worlds where she's seeing that maybe what we're experiencing in our reality is really just a computer generated world. And she's seeing that maybe she could be, quote unquote, the chosen one. She can manipulate things, she can change things to her will. But she's now finding that there are also other people that live here. And while she jumped into this world by choice, they were pulled in and they're just trying to survive, because one of the things that happens in this world is that they're seen as viruses, and the computer program is absolutely trying to wipe those away. Now, some of these people that she meets along the way, she has a difficult time of convincing them that her way is the right way here. And unfortunately, some of them meet their untimely death here. But by the end of the story here, it looks like we're on a path to kind of get her from the point where she's at right now as the chosen one to being at the point where she needs to be, making the changes in the world that we're looking to see here. So the artwork is really great in this. There's a lot of colors. I believe Jordi Belair is on the colors on this. Let's see if we can get a good page. Here we are. So there's a lot of use of cooler color tones on this. I think it's trying to convey the circuitry of a computer board here. It's really well paced. It's a really well colored and drawn issue here, and the story is enticing. So Beyond Real, definitely recommend. Love this story so far. Really excited to see where it goes. All right, next up on my list here is the runner up this week from Boone Studios, Pine and Merrimack, written by Kyle Starks with artwork by Fran Galan. This has been an awesome book so far. Kyle Starks has really carved out a really fun niche for himself. Um, he it's hard to say that he writes a serious story, but he writes a really well crafted real story. When you're reading the dialogue from him, it sounds so natural, it sounds so real, like you're talking to people in real life, as opposed to the heightened reality that we see from movies and TV and sometimes in comics for sure. This is the story of a husband and wife team that have kind of put away the big scene crime part of their life, and they're really trying to live the small town life where they're just dealing with the lost dogs, the little, maybe the my husband or wife is cheating on me kind of deals, right? And just making their living that way. But they've stumbled across something that's way more sinister, um, possibly a cult, and it is definitely driving them down the place where they did not want to be. In issue 3, the characters are really pushed outside of their comfort zone, but they understand that the goal that they're trying to achieve here kind of requires that as they infiltrate the mansion in which a lot of these occult dealings are taking place, they're in a place where maybe they can possibly save the day right here and right now. But we all know it's also a comic, it's a story, and that's not the way things work out. The story ends on a big, big, big cliffhanger here, and I don't want to spoil things, but trust me when I say this is issue 3. I will be around for issue number 4. So, Pine and Merrimack, what are you thinking? All right, it's time for the pick of the week. And this week's pick of the week, subgenre number 4, written by Matt Kent with artwork by Wilfredo Torres. Now, this has been a really interesting story so far because as we're led through the series, we're starting with a detective story, right? It's a man that's, hired to look into a murder mystery, right? It's the basic noir storyline that we've come to love. But halfway through the issue, we also see that our protagonist jumps into a different world where he's, taking on the persona of a barbarian with a very Conan-esque world, or maybe a John Carter of Mars type of thing. And we see this throughout the previous three issues where he keeps jumping from world to world to world. All the while, a team is kind of right on his tail that are trying to basically stop him from pursuing his goals. So we're kind of led to believe that it's a classic good guy versus bad guy kind of story where he's jumping from these different, dimensions to dimensions. When we crack into issue 4 here, though, we really learn that these might not be dimensions at all. We find out that there is maybe this different world that we hadn't seen previously, one where the protagonist was, a husband, he had a wife, he had a child, he had responsibilities, goals, duties. And we see that, his family is struggling with the fact that he is having these maybe hallucinations, maybe it's a possible personality disorder where he's taking on these different identities, and they're working with him. They're trying to help him through these things by way of, just support, medication, and whatever that may be. And you can really see that what we expected from the story is absolutely opposite of what we're actually getting. This is the story of a human being who's struggling with all of the things that life throws at us, all of the responsibilities that we need to take on, and how difficult even the minute things are. And his solution is looking towards the comic books of his past, right? The detective stories that he loves, and really taking on these identities and personas to get through day-to-day life. Now, is that healthy? Probably not here, but it's really it starts off as an action story, and it starts off as a mystery where the mystery truly turns out to be the protagonist himself. I think this is an extraordinarily well-crafted story. I think that it left enough to the readers where Matt Kint didn't hold your hand through the story. He trusted, you to kind of come up with the solutions to these things. He gave you just enough to kind of keep you on the line and keep the story moving in a really satisfying way here. But he definitely didn't feel the need to say, this is what's happening, this is what you're going to experience. He lets it flow over you. All in all, this was a really, really satisfying story. I loved it from start to finish here. Pick of the week again, subgenre. So that's what I've got this week. Those were the books that I've read here, but I'm more curious. What did you read? What did I miss? Do me a favor, like, comment, and subscribe. Leave me a comment down below. Let me know what I should be reading here, what you liked about this, and be part of the panel here. Thanks again for watching. We'll talk to you later.